Hello, Dippers. As you can tell, this is Thomas R. Shackelford and not Drake with the intro. He had to stay at home tonight to hang out with some friends, so he left me in charge of the intro. Tonight we have on the Saucy Pod, second time he's on, one of the world's greatest grapplers. He's got a big fight coming up in Tokyo on March 31st for 1FC. The New Era is the name of the event, Mr. Gary Tonin. We hope you enjoy listening to the actual show afterwards. Don't just leave after the best part. Have a good one. When will you be taking off for Tokyo? Is that time? Are you already training with that time change, or are you just gonna go straight there and just jump right in?
Yeah, so I leave on Saturday, so that gives me like roughly a week to adjust, to the time zone and everything like that. It's definitely difficult. I want to say it's like a 12-hour time difference. I haven't like adjusted my training schedule based off of times or anything like that, because it's kind of hard to tell exactly when I was going to fight anyway. I'll handle all that this week, so I'll try to get adjusted and try to get my body active around the time I believe I'm going to be fighting. I think somebody told me the event starts like 3:30 p.m. Tokyo time, which is kind of odd. That seems a little early. But it is a Sunday, so maybe that's why they're starting it a little earlier. But I would imagine if that's the case, then I'm probably going to go on sometime around 6 Tokyo time.
So, I was looking at the card. A couple things struck me. It's like a 16-fight card was the first thing. And as I was looking at it, I was like, man, why is he so far down? And then I started looking at it. This is probably maybe the UFC a couple weekends ago, but other than that, this is probably the best card I've seen this whole year so far.
Yeah, it's a pretty big card, man. It's like I said, a lot of people said what you said. Oh man, why is he not a main event? And well, when you look at who is the main event and who is on the main card, it's like, it's pretty. Sorry, I didn't mean why he's not a main event. I meant why he's not on the main card.
Yeah,
who is the main event and who's on the main card? It seems pretty obvious. We got a lot of amazing fighters on this card, and it's I was really gunning to try to make sure that I was going to be a part of this show, so I'm super glad that I'm going to.
Yeah, they named it I think the show's called like the New Era, and man, it's just legend after legend after legend all the way through, and then you mix in the Eddie Alvarez and the Mighty Mouse, and as I was looking through there, and I was like, I guess that's fair. You're one of the best grapplers in the world, and you're starting out, and they're trying to get your name out. But I guess that's fair with all those superstars on there. It kind of blew my mind. Is there any fight on there that you're like super looking forward to watching after you whoop this dude?
Good question. I'll be interested. I think Shinya's fighting, right?
Yeah, he's the main against. The main event, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll be interested in that for sure, because I know that eventually they're going to pit us against each other one day. I think that's inevitable, considering the fact that we had the grappling match.
Yeah.
And that's a fight I'll look forward to. So I'm always interested to watch him fight, because it just gives me more and more insight to the kind of things that he's going to do. Also, watching Eddie Alvarez fight will be good, because similar situation, who knows what they're going to do with that, because he's in 170 as well. So that may be something that happens one day also. But also just from a perspective of, like, he's kind of like an extended teammate, because he trains out of Ricardo's gym. So, it'll be cool to see him fighting out there as well. Those would probably be the two that I'm looking forward to the most, I would say, out of any of the fights.
Yeah, the one that kind of course, those were on there. Shinya Aoki's a legend. I'll definitely be looking to see if he's going to wear some of his famous, and maybe the first guy to ever really make spats famous. Is that fair to say? Just the crazy colored, grappling spats. I'll be pumped to see that. But that kickboxing fight, the Andy Sauer versus Fairtex, that just jumped out of nowhere. I was looking through and I was like, wait a second, there's an insane kickboxing fight right here.
Yeah, I wonder, are they going to be doing that with the MMA gloves? I wonder, because they
Yeah.
do a lot of their kickboxing fights with the MMA gloves, and it definitely changes things, man. I mean, those 4-ounce gloves hit a lot harder, man. People get knocked out a lot faster. So
Yeah, I kind of, I have the app and I was kind of looking through there, and I did notice when it was showing a lot of the kickboxing fights, they were wearing those small gloves. So that kind of crossed my mind too. That's going to be a slobber knocker. I just don't see how that, I don't see how that goes the full time limit.
yeah. Yeah, it's pretty interesting to see. It's really cool how they kind of mix those different genres together, and they have like some of the best in the world and different martial arts competing on the same card. And they do that a lot. It's not just this card, They put world champion kickboxers and Muay Thai guys into most of their cards, I think.
Yeah, and that's how that's for the people that hadn't seen it. That's how you got matched up with Aoki before. It was just a straight grappling match, which I think's pretty cool. I know in the American market that may not be like something we'll ever see, but I thought it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun. I think the fans loved it. It sounded like it was well received. The organization told me they thought it was well received. They've done a couple other ones since then. Not too many, but I definitely think it's a little less appealing in general than the kickboxing and the Muay Thai. But I think peppering it in every once in a while, if you get a good matchup, I think it's worth it. And I think it's something that people are interested to see. Also, Asian fans are just different in that regard. I think they just enjoy grappling a little bit more than the U.S. market for sure.
Yeah, will this be your first trip to Tokyo, to Japan, or have you made several over there?
So I made one trip to Tokyo for the press conference, which was in like August. So when I went there, I was only there for a couple of days. I didn't really get to go around that much. All I really got to do was like media stuff. For one, I didn't like stay any extra because I was kind of in the middle of my fight camp for my last fight. So I didn't really want to stay and hang out for too long. I wanted to pop right back. And it was an amazing opportunity, obviously, to be a part of the press conference. But once my obligations were over, I didn't want to stick around any more than that because I take the training camps really seriously, and I really want to make sure I win all my fights. So I came straight back home and started training. So it'll be cool to be there for a little bit longer. I unfortunately won't be able to stay after the fight, but I'll still be there for 7 days. I think I'll get a little bit more of a sense of like what Japan's like, staying there for a week as opposed to just a couple days.
Yeah, I know you're I believe you're from Jersey and you're in New York a ton, obviously. I feel like for me, just being a Midwestern dude, like I would probably just lose my mind in a place like Tokyo, but for you, you're probably used to a lot of that just gigantic city life, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely similar in certain ways, I guess, to New York, and the fact it's a bigger city and stuff. But it's always, every place you go to is a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, I just travel to so many different places for what I do that, I'm always kind of interested in what each new place brings to the table, but it's a little less shocking overall having seen so many different environments. And like you said, because it's an urban environment, being in New York all the time, the general nature of it being very busy doesn't really shock me, because I'm around that a lot for sure. But it's still just it takes time to adjust to your area, man, like just to get your bearings. Like there's a lot that goes into that week of fight camp, because like I think like when people normally travel, there's no real goal of travel, right? Like you're just gonna travel, you're gonna vacation, you're gonna see some certain things, etc., and you kind of have like that mapped out. But all in all, like what you go to eat isn't that big of a deal. You don't need to accomplish too many tasks. It's just recreational. But when you're there in these places for fight camp, like you kind of have to learn your area. It's like, all right, well, where am I going to go to do my laundry? Where am I going to go to get the proper food for this weight cut that I need to be able to eat? Like, where's that healthy food going to be Where's there gonna be like a supermarket nearby when I need to get things like water? It's not like it's a whole process of, getting acclimated to that area and feeling comfortable in that environment. Where am I going to train, for the week leading up to it so that I can stay, fresh for the fight? So I got to like develop relationships with people. I have to figure out where things are. There's a lot to it, man. And it's exciting, but it's also a little bit stressful, especially for the first couple of days when you don't really know where anything is. And especially in these countries where a lot of times a lot of people don't speak English. So I obviously don't speak Japanese, so it's difficult sometimes to communicate.
Well, hopefully, a lot of the Khabib and a lot of those guys, when they're doing the UFC embeddeds or wherever, a lot of them seem like they end up at the Renzo Gracie Academy out there. So, do you? I mean, surely you have some connections through your, the lineage, through all that you can. The training doesn't seem like I guess what I'm saying is, it fair to say that finding a spot to train is the easiest part out of all that?
Actually, no. Surprisingly not, because yes, I have connections to people that could. I have guys that have trained, in Japan or moved to Japan from Renzo's and things. But the problem is this: like, I really try my best to keep my training environment inside of a cage, and that's actually, no matter where you are, that's not really a common thing. It's kind of rare to have a training facility that actually has a cage to work in of any size, and it's even more rare in Asian countries because typically, like, the gyms are a little bit smaller. So it's either smaller, or if it is big and it has like rings and things, there's not a lot of places that have cages. They're usually more about rings in Asia. So I'm usually very persistent at trying to find somewhere where I can get a cage to train in, because I find that it most simulates the environment I'm going to be fighting in, and anything short of that is just not preparing to the best of my ability. So I really, it's usually more difficult than you think it is, because it's very rare that I'm able to just talk to somebody that I know. I usually have to train at somebody's gym that I don't know, because it's whoever has that cage, that I'm really interested in training at that gym. Back in the day when I used to do jiu-jitsu, it was pretty easy. I have a lot of contacts through jiu-jitsu, and find a place to train wasn't too much of an issue because you just need an open mat. But a cage is a different ballgame.
See, when you were running through the list of things, the one that I didn't think of was freaking laundry. And once you said it, I was like, oh, that makes sense. He's going to be there a week. Unless he's just throwing clothes out the window and has a new one every time, that's probably a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, you can bring enough clothes. Like, I try not to do that much laundry, but like when you're I like to train every day leading up to a fight. And then there's the weight cut where I'm going to be sweating and stuff. Like, I mean, what am I going to do? Have all these sweaty, stinky clothes just sitting around this? And usually the hotel rooms that you're staying in are not like huge hotel rooms. Certainly in Japan, I know that it won't be because it's tight space over there. So, yeah, man. I mean, occasionally I won't need one. But I would say 9 times out of 10, I'm trying to find a laundromat or something that I can get my laundry done at whenever I travel to these places.
It's the everyday things, I guess.
Yep.
Just kind of getting to the fight. So you're fighting Anthony Engelin. He's 8-5. The dude, I've seen you share a couple of videos of him. The one with the huge head kick knockout. What I noticed about the dude the most when I was watching his fights, he seems like he's just a tough, scrappy dude, and it didn't matter if he was on the wrong end of it or the right end of it. He was coming straight forward and had that kind of orthodox kickboxing, just coming right at the guys. Is that? Do you think that that'll be something that will go more towards what you're looking for, or did you have to change your game plan up a little bit?
Well, here's the first thing that I'll tell you is that I truly believe, and I have empirical evidence to prove it, but only 3 fights worth, that every person that fights me differently than they fight the majority of their opponents. So I can watch as much tape as I want on the guy. I'm going to bet you with, like, a 90% certainty that this fight, whether he wins, loses, or otherwise, is going to look different than every other fight that he's had in the cage. And the reason is because he's preparing for a very specific opponent. I would say most of the time, these guys are engaging with opponents that are, maybe they have a strong suit. Like, all right, maybe these guys a little bit of a tougher wrestler, a little bit of a tougher jiu-jitsu guy, a little bit of a tougher kickboxer or boxer, whatever the case may be. And they have a strong suit. But it's rare that these guys are, and this isn't like to toot my own horn or anything. It's just to say that, like, I have a high level of expertise in one specific area. I only have 1 year of experience doing all the other stuff, right? So because of that, every time someone fights me, they fight me different. When I fought Rahul Raju and I watched all of his tape, every fight that I watched, the guy rushed forward on people and tried to take their head off and then moved into a clinch and tried to take him down. Well, he didn't do that at all in my fight. There was maybe one time where I can remember him trying to rush forward on me. Every other time, he kind of hung back and tried to counterpunch me, which was a surprise because I'd watched all the rest of his fights. I'm like, oh, man, I know what this guy's going to do. Nope, wrong. And I think that was because he was afraid to rush forward, get taken down, etc., right? Third guy I fought, what was I going to say? The name's escaping me for the moment. But I'll come back to it. But anyway, the last guy I just recently fought, when I watch all of his fights, he was like pulling guard, trying to find any way he could to get it to the ground. And when I watched that in his tape, it was almost every fight. And then when he fought me, nope, not at all. Wasn't interested in really getting it to the ground. And in fact, anytime he got to the ground, he was interested in standing up. So, it's tough, man. Like you said, like you look at these guys' tape and you're like, all right, I kind of have a rough idea what this guy's going to do. I don't think we're going to see the same thing that he's been doing in the rest of his fights. I just don't. Yeah. Do I think he's still going to be tough? Like you said, is he still scrappy? Sure. Do I think he's just going to do I think he's just going to try to mow forward? I don't know. Don't know if I'm going to.
You hope that. So, right?
I mean, it can go both ways, man. Sometimes forward pressure, it's surprising. Like, forward pressure, sure, like it may make it easier to take somebody down, but it's also like it's alarming, man. Especially with 4-ounce gloves, like you want to get out of the way. That's your first instinct. You're like, all right, there's a truck coming towards me. Let's move. You don't think. Usually, human psychology would not tell you, let's push back. Yeah. Because it's dangerous, right? It'd be like if somebody was swinging a bat at your head. I mean, just replace fists and feet. You're going to move away from that thing. It's dangerous. So, you could try to push back. You could try to evade. There's a lot of different ways to deal with it. But I'll say forward pressure is tricky, man. Sometimes it's a good thing for me. Other times when I'm sparring and I feel somebody uses a lot of forward pressure, like, it's tough. It's tough to deal with. It's not like an easy thing. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I would like. I don't know what I would want him to do in an ideal world. In an ideal world, I'd like him to stand completely still, not throw any punches, no head movement. Just let me tee off on his face. That would be great.
Well, maybe the fans would love that. I have a feeling he's not going to do that, but
agreed.
There's always hope. I think with the way your style has been so far, and with him, I think I don't think they do like fight of the night bonuses or anything, but I just have a feeling
that you have a knockout of the night.
Do they really? I think when I was looking through the
fight of the night, though.
When I was looking through the list, I thought, man, these two dudes, just the way you've been fighting, which you said you've had 3, and the 4 fights I've watched to him, like. I think it's going to be a pretty fun fight. Of course, I know you're going to come out on top, but when I saw the matchup and I saw that guy, I was like, well, this should be fun.
Yeah, man. And I mean, like you said, it's such a huge card. If that's the case, and it is a really exciting fight, I mean, it's all the better. There's going to be more eyes on this card for sure. So,
Askren said it a few.
These amazing guys.
Yeah, Ben Askren said it a few weeks ago. Like, you don't ever want to find out how tough you are. You just want to walk in, like you said, the dude lays down, gives it up, and then you move on.
Yeah, finding out how tough you are is definitely not a good way to live your career, for sure.
So to go off topic a little bit, it's funny. I saw you. I think you shot the tweet out today, and I just watched this film. Probably, I watched it Saturday at work, so like 3 days ago. Free Solo.
Yeah.
For the people that haven't watched it, you need to get on it. It's about a dude climbing El Capitan with no freaking
climbing.
Ropes, which is
No ropes.
Insane. Just real quick, my jiu-jitsu instructor here, where we live, there's a big Shawnee National Forest. Rock climbing's pretty big around here, and last summer we did a little picnic. I climbed the bunny trail. Like, his 8-year-old son climbed the exact trail that I did, and I got about halfway up. I was sweating bullets. I almost froze like halfway up, and then his kid comes up and does it like 20 minutes later just as fine. But the tweet that I was getting at was, I think you had the same exact thoughts I did. Now, I'm an old married man with 2 kids, so I obviously didn't listen to my own advice. But when I was watching that, his girlfriend, it struck me as odd, because she said she met him at a book signing of one of his books, and so clearly he's writing books about climbing mountains with no ropes. So
that's what he's known for.
And your tweet today said something to the effect of, that girlfriend is exactly why a relationship isn't a good thing when you're like pressing so hard like that. So I didn't know if you could
treat it the way that she treats it. Like, she was. What I basically meant is she's just like the worst example of what could happen if you're in a relationship that's negative for your goals, like in life.
Yeah.
And like, obviously a relationship's a little bit about a give and take. I understand that. But that was probably based on the things that they captured on that film. Now, of course, we don't get to see them day to day. I don't know. Maybe she's a nice girl, whatever. But I'm going off what I heard. Okay. And maybe they did that just for drama for the film, just to piss people off. Who knows? But either way, based off of what I saw, it was like the worst case scenario of a human being trying to do everything they could, it seemed like, whether subconsciously or consciously, to make you doubt yourself, make you feel like you shouldn't be doing whatever it is that you love, not supporting you, and meanwhile, all the while, doing that, but all the while saying that you wanted to support the person's dream.
Yeah.
She's again, these people, whoever's listening to this is going to, hopefully they get to watch, but even if they don't, basically she'd sit there and she'd say, oh, I love him and I want him to live the time of his life and accomplish his goals, this, that, and the other thing. And like you said, she knows the guy. She knew the guy was a free soloer before she met him. And there's numerous times where she's saying, you could die up there.
Yeah.
That could happen. And this is like, and at least maybe this is the way the timeline seems in the story. It seems like she's saying that possibly days or weeks before he's about to go do it.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't like 6 months out. This is like days or weeks before this guy is going to make the decision to go climb the biggest mountain, like one of the biggest mountains ever, with no ropes. And you're telling him things like, you could die. Like, do you want him to doubt himself and then slip and fall? Like, what's happening? Yeah,
there's no worse time to have any doubt in your head than the day or 2 days or 3 days before you're going to climb that thing.
A number of times she's involved with him, and he she has a fall or something and hurts him, and it's crazy. And then I hear him say, he's like, in a normal situation, I would have just broke up there immediately. That was my initial thought, and I'm like, that's what you should have done. It would have made your life so much better. You're so like. I was starting to feel a little bad because as I was watching the movie, I'm like, nah, dude, you gotta ditch her. Yeah, she's a babe. She seems fun. She's climbing with you. She gotta go. So when I saw your tweet today, I started cracking up. I was like, I'm not the only guy. Like, I'm not the only guy that sees it. Meanwhile, I saw some other girl comment underneath the movie. I was just looking at some of the comments on the movie, and she's like, "Oh, the movie was, the movie wasn't good. That guy was a selfish asshole. This, that, and the other thing." It's like, yeah, but that's what she got herself into. Like, that's who that guy was. Like, he is a man with his heart set on climbing mountains, man, with no rope. Like, that's what he lives for. When he wakes up in the morning, that's what he's thinking about. When he's not doing it, he was living in a van so that he could travel and go climb different mountains. Like, that's dedication right there. People don't do that when they just like, oh yeah, it's kind of something I do. It's not just a hobby. That's that dude's life.
Yeah,
Crazy,
you know the part where he got hurt when he said that, it was she actually dropped him. I mean, I think it's called boloing, where the dude at the bottom's holding the rope, so if they do tip off, like, you just catch them, and she wasn't paying attention, and it slipped through.
Belaying the person.
Belaying, not bolo. I don't know what the hell a bolo is.
Close enough.
So she slipped him through. That's like the jiu-jitsu equivalent of, you got a girlfriend and you're practicing guard jumps, and she moves like midair or doesn't hold you up and drops you right on your melon or something.
100%. Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh.
It's literally insane.
Yeah, I had to ask you about that because, like I said, when I was watching it, I was sitting there and I was like, man, this dude. So when you tweeted that out today, I got a good laugh. And
a number of times in my life I've had situations like that. It wasn't as extreme, but it's a big part of why I haven't had a girlfriend in a long time, man. Every single one, just like that girl showed up to his book signing. Like, it seems appealing at the start, right? She's like, oh man, this is this famous climber. Like, he's really cool, and he does this exciting thing. And then as the person gets to know you more and more, they try to take more and more away from that exciting thing that originally had them interested. So every girl that I ever talk to will be like, oh no, yeah, I love that you're a fighter, that you do this and you compete, and that's so cool. And no, it's good that you're dedicated to something and you have ambition, you care about something. Yeah. It's good until it conflicts with something that they want you to do. The moment it conflicts with something that they want you to do, or some other responsibility that they have, or something they want you to show up for, that you're going to not do because you have to be dedicated to your dream, then it's not good anymore. then you should be making sacrifices for me. You don't care about me. You're selfish. Goddamn right, I'm selfish. That's how I was when you met me.
Yeah. That's when you need good friends. That's when you need good friends to step in and be like, hey man, it's time for her to go. That's when you have those good, honest friends. That's when that's best for.
Most of us don't listen though. Let's be honest.
Hell no, man. You never listen. When your buddy's like, oh dude, that girl's not good for you. You're like, hey man, don't be mean to my girl. Like,
exactly. Half the time you push your friends away.
Yeah.
It's rough, dude. It's tough.
Women are the devil. I tell all my friends that. I've been married like 13 years and I have 2 daughters, and I never stop telling people women are the devil.
Oh, man. You got luck of the draw there.
Yeah. That's the only reason I train any wrestling or jiu-jitsu or anything, is I know someday I'm going to have to kill some kid.
Right?
Oh, well, man.
Also, you probably need to just spend some time around some dudes.
Yeah.
You're surrounded, bro.
Yeah. I go to class. I'm just like, hey, I can't roll with any girls. I got to stay on the side of the gym where it's all the college dudes that are here to rip somebody's head off. I got to be near those guys.
I need some testosterone in my life. Please, I'm tired of going to the store to buy tampons.
Well,
oh, man.
Well, dude, that's all the questions I got. Of course, good luck in Tokyo. I don't have any doubt you're going to jump on this dude's back and pop his head off like a pimple.
I'm going to try.
Again, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for getting back of a hold of us. If you have anybody else that wants to come on, or we'll get a hold of you after your fight, anytime, pass our number. You tell me their names, I'll get a hold of them. We'll love to have anybody on, man.
All right, yeah, sounds good, man. Thanks so much.
All right, brother. Good luck.
Talk to you later, brother. Bye-bye.
Well, hello there, Dippers, and welcome back to episode 48 of the Knuckle Sammich podcast, the official MMA podcast of Sauce on the Side. As always, Dippers, I'm your host, Drake, joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Thomas R. Shackelford.
Good morning, guys.
Dippers, today we're going to talk about the UFC Fight Night last weekend in London, and we will also break down the card, which is UFC Nashville Fight Night, headlined by Stephen Thompson and Anthony Pettis. So, Dippers, wait and see. you know what to do. All right, Mr. Shackelford, so let's go ahead and talk about UFC Fight Night in London. Obviously headlined by George Masvidal and Darren Till. Surprising main event there. We obviously had Darren Till beating Masvidal. Talked about a lot of the stuff that Masvidal's been going through leading up to this fight. Talked about how good Darren Till looked coming into this fight, how big he was. What do you think went wrong for Darren Till in this fight?
Real quick before we get to that, last week I told you I'd watched a couple fights of Masvidal and his corner was calling him George. Well, this week there were people calling him Jorge, and he was answering to it just fine. So I think our Jorge versus George argument can actually be solved just like what happens to me. I get called Scotty all the time. There are grown-ups in this world that have called me Scotty since I can ever remember. I never stopped them from calling me Scotty. I have another family member named Scotty, so God only knows what they call him. And even to this day, I work at a hospital. I have a professional career. I have people that legitimately have known me for years through work that call me Scott. I've never ever said, "Hey man, my name's Sean," because like once you let them call it a couple times, like then it's just weird. So I think maybe we can call him George or Jorge, whatever you want. I think he's a little bit like me. He just doesn't give a shit what you call him. He's just going to talk to you no matter what. I was hoping that you, when you watched the broadcast, that you would notice it and send me a text like, "You dick, I called him Joe. I knew it was Jorge."
Well, I know whenever he got into that fight after the the fight backstage and everything, everybody's like, "No, George, yeah. George."
Yeah, I'm telling you. I think some people go with George, some people go with Jorge, and he's just like, whatever you want to call me.
I think it's kind of like the whole parents use your middle name whenever you get in trouble. Because whenever he's doing good in a fight, they're like, "All right, hip hip hooray." And then whenever he's back there trying to fight guys in the backstage, they're like, "No, George, damn it, George."
Yeah, we'll call him whatever we want. I actually like George. I think that's funnier. But so back to the actual fight. I think Till was a victim of his own success. And I say that because when you look at his earlier fights and then his fight against Cowboy, his fight against Wonder Boy, he was using that lead hand to pat down or parry or jab. He was doing a really good job at mixing up his strikes, making sure that he kept the range where he wanted it, and he was using a lead hand to create that, a lead hand or a lead kick. And in that first round, I said the key to the fight last week was, are we going to see Till come out there and control the distance like he had previously to the Woodley fight, or is he just going to leap in with a rear left uppercut and get clobbered? He didn't get clobbered by that, but he essentially got clobbered in the same exact style that Woodley used. In the first round, Till comes out. He's using a jab. He's blocking the hand with his right hand. He lands that huge straight left, immediately follows up to the ground, gets some ground and pound, controls position, gets a takedown later in the round. I mean, there's an argument that first round's a 10-8. I mean, towards the end of the round, though, you start seeing him stalk a little bit, and this is a little complaint I have. I've complained about the ESPN Plus app with you guys a little bit. I don't know if the camera work is different for ESPN, but they weren't showing the guy's feet, which you may think, "Oh, that's stupid. I don't need to see with the guy's feet." But I like to see the guy's feet, especially.
Well, it's not boxing.
Yeah, exactly. And even boxing, I like to see their feet. Especially with a southpaw, because if he's throwing that left hand and his right foot is on the inside of that opponent's foot, that's not a great way to throw that far left hand. You want to be on the outside of your opponent's foot throwing that hand to bring him all the way across. And it was a little pet peeve. I'm watching that fight, and there my grandpa, my aunts always gave him shit growing up because he wanted a picture from head to toe. If you didn't have the feet in the picture, he got mad. So when I was watching, I was like, "Man, Grandpa Norman would be pissed about this camera work." So, but towards the end of that round, he got a little more flat-footed. He was stalking a little bit more. His lead hand started getting lower, and Masvidal landed a couple shots on him towards the end of the round. Still easily his round. Second round, he comes out, and it's a little bit 50-50. He's Masvidal starting to put the pressure forward. Till's being a little complacent. And he actually hit him with what I would call, when I was my first kickboxing or stand-up gym I went to, was a Taekwondo gym, and they called it rushing, where you have your lead hand forward and you're kind of bouncing, and you kind of push that lead hand forward just a little, and then you switch your stance, your feet stance, and then you come with an overhand on the other hand. So your hand that was previously in front is now your backhand leading with a power shot. And Till's freaking right hand was low. Masvidal, I think, was orthodox. Kind of pawed that left a little bit, backstepped, hit that huge overhand, and he was knocked dead. Now that's concerning because in his last fight, Woodley, who's a bigger hitter, hit him just as flush, and it didn't knock him dead. He got finished up on the ground. Masvidal, who is a strong puncher, it was, I mean, did you see the knockout live, or did you see it?
Oh, yeah, I saw the knockout.
He knocked him stone cold. I mean, and then his head bounced off the canvas. That's a little bit scary. He's a young guy. You can't take too many of those before your chin juice runs out.
No, I agree. Definitely a disappointing loss there for Darren Till. It'll be interesting to see what happens next for him. So the next two fights we're going to discuss, because we did break down three, gave you 3 picks. Both fights split decisions. First one we'll talk about is Leon Edwards picking up the split decision win over Gunnar Nelson. Pretty odd scoring on this card, honestly. You had 28-29 in favor of Gunnar Nelson. Then you had a 29-28 and a 29-27. So no two judges had the same card there. We're kind of getting used to that now in the UFC. But what did you see in this fight about both fighters?
First off, Gunnar is... He's almost too small for that weight class. I mean, he looks like he doesn't cut a whole lot of weight, and Edwards looked like he weighed 250 on the night of. Basically, so the scoring with that one I think was weird because in the first round, Gunnar's a guy that he's almost karate stance, almost a lot like McGregor. He'll throw 1 or 2 shots in for the takedown. He did that pretty much for 4 minutes of that first round. He was winning the round. Got a couple takedowns, grounded him. Edwards was able to get back up, and then they got into a clinch on the fence, and Edwards just out-muscled him, got his own takedown, and actually took Gunnar's back. Now, he didn't have hooks in. He didn't threaten a submission, really. He basically was just in the turtle or referee's position and just would not let Gunnar up. And that was about the last minute and a half of the round. So in a round that there was just a couple takedowns, no big strikes or anything that was going Gunnar's way, that probably should have won Leon Edwards the round. Clearly on at least one of the judges' cards it didn't. They actually gave that round to Nelson. Second round essentially went the exact same way. You had Edwards kind of stuffing takedowns and Gunnar attempting takedowns, and it went like that till about midway through when on a break they turned. Edwards hit Gunnar with a real nice short elbow, knocked Gunnar down. Clearly Edwards' round. Gunnar after that seemed a little bit in desperation mode. His eye swelled up huge right away. Third round you got more of the same until at the end of the round Gunnar finally got the takedown on Edwards, slipped into mount. Again, it was about a minute left, so it's almost like that first round where Edwards was probably winning the round up to that spot. So a kind of weird fight. I would say just watching the fight, I thought Edwards won. It was one of those that if you're coaching a wrestler or you're coaching somebody, you're super pissed off if you're the cornerman for Gunnar Nelson, because your guy's doing most of the work the whole time, and then that dude does one thing and steals around basically right. 2 out of the 3 rounds. So I mean, I love Gunnar Nelson. He may have to go. He may have to get to 55, or just maybe try and take some catch weight fights. His game plan has just always been the same: 1-2 strike, takedown, 1-2 strike, takedown. And if that doesn't work, he doesn't seem to have a lot of backup plans. Now for Edwards, I think his size basically kept thwarted a lot of those takedowns. As much as technique. So he's still a great fighter. I think he's had like 7 wins. His last loss was to Kamaru Usman by decision, and it wasn't as far away decision as what the champ just had with Usman. So Edwards, he's moving on up. I think after the backstage stuff, you almost have to see a Edwards Masvidal fight.
Right. I agree. I think that kind of was like WWE style, like setting up for the next fight.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about the last fight here. Light heavyweight fight between Volkan Ozdemir, Dominic Reyes. Dominic Reyes did win the fight via split decision. Another goofy fight where if you look at the cards, somebody had somebody winning every round. So it wasn't like there was any clear-cut round where, hey, this guy won on, all 3 of the judges' cards. Do you think that they had gotten the decision right, giving the fight to Reyes?
It was a weird one. I thought Reyes was leading for a good portion, and then Ozdemir, I believe, towards the later part of the round, kind of started timing him a little bit. So I mean, just a kind of a very close round where one guy led the dance for a while, then maybe the other guy kind of picked up on a little bit. Second round I thought was clearly Ozdemir. He was doing most of the stalking, landing. Third round, again, Ozdemir at the beginning seemed like he was doing a little bit better. Towards the end, Reyes started leading. So to me, some of I wouldn't mind them calling some of these draws. If the scoring's that close, why nitpick that close? Just call a draw. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if there was one that could have been a draw, I think it could have been this one. Ozdemir definitely got the first, and there's a case that he won both 1 and 3, and there's a case that Reyes won both 1 and 3 and lost the second one. So I didn't have an issue with either guy winning. It's a bummer for Ozdemir because, he probably did a little bit more damage on Reyes. So if they were scoring old school Pride style, he would have won off damage. But they don't. They do, round by round. So Reyes moves a little bit closer to John Jones, and Ozdemir kind of, his nickname No Time, that's how he got his title shot. He was just coming out trying to smash dudes, and it worked. And his last fight with Smith, he kind of ran out, just they smashed into each other until he crumpled. And then this one, it was almost like he tried to change the game plan, be a little more methodical, and he lost a very, very close split decision. So I'd rather, dude, he punches like a freaking tank. I'd rather him he reminds me a lot of Glover. I think he just needs to fight like Glover. Just square stance, moving forward, bobbing and weaving, throwing hooks, and crushing dudes.
Right. So, an interesting question, like, you said that you think Masvidal and Leon Edwards is next. Where do you think Darren Till goes from here? Because,
Time off. He needs time off.
Yes.
I mean, I've listened to some other shows, and they were saying he's too big, he can't take a punch because of his weight, and 85 he's got. I would agree if they said he could have new life at 85 just because now he's had 2 losses and at 170, and usually when you lose that title loss, it's tough to kind of make your way back to that title. I would agree with that. I don't know that I agree with, hey, you're too big for that weight. He made the weight, and he seemed to make it pretty easy. It wasn't his weight that lost him the fight. It was a technique thing. It was a game plan thing. He went out, knocked a dude down, maybe got a little overconfident, and that guy is tough as shit, and you can't get overconfident with Masvidal. So, I would not like to see him back in there for at least 6 months. I mean, a half a year. That's not too much. He's made some money. He's had like 2 main event slots. He probably got pay-per-view points off of his last one. I'm sure he's got enough money to sit back and chill for 6 months. Just let your brain heal up. and wait to see what happens at 70 or 85, because 85 is just as murky right now, as anything, as any other weight class. With Whitaker being out, there's an interim title coming up. Who the hell knows where Rockhold and those guys are, Weidman. He could go up to 85 and have a good time. He could stay at 70 and have a good time. But most importantly, the dude needs time off.
No, I agree with that 100%, especially being so young, and getting the
what is he,
knockout
23,
like
24?
I think he's 26 now. He got old on us quick.
That's still young. That's still young.
I agree, especially for as many fights as he's had. That's super young.
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and talk about UFC on ESPN Plus this weekend. It is in Nashville, Tennessee. You and I will both be there. And if you look at this card, it's a pretty interesting card. There's a lot of really fun fighters on here. Obviously, you have Thug Nasty with Bryce Mitchell. Curtis Blades, former guest of the show, taking on Justin Big Pretty Willis. Violent Bob Ross, another guy that we've talked extensively about on this show. Luis Pena, Macy Barber, J.J. Aldrich, Stephen Thompson, Anthony Pettis is the headliner. Could make for a very exciting night of fights. Which fight outside of the main event and co-main event are you really looking forward to this weekend?
I think, hands down, it's the Macy Barber and J.J. Aldrich, the two girls. Macy Barber, I just watched a fight this morning. I forget who she beat in her opener, but she beat the brakes off the girl. Very good striker. I love watching her footwork. She's in and out. She's side to side. She's got great kicks, great hands. And one thing that I think could play a big factor in this, she is really good in the clinch. And something I hate seeing MMA fighters do, when she's in the clinch, she controls the head position always. Her forehead is always in their eye socket, their ear, their jaw. The shit that I teach 6-year-old wrestlers that it helps in the long run. She's great at that. Whereas J.J. Aldrich is, maybe she's a southpaw, maybe a little more flat-footed, but she has, and I should say about Macy Barber real quick, when she punches, she has a little bit of a tendency to punch wide. Her punches come a little wide, but that's because she's so elusive. She's not standing there throwing these wide punches. She's in and out moving them, so it works a lot. Whereas J.J. Aldrich is a little bit more flat-footed. She's a southpaw, but her punches are like laser beams, just straight 1-2. Also very good in the clinch. When I think of this fight, I'm like, this is going to be a super technical fight. These girls can both hit really hard. They're both nasty, and it's almost like their styles play in perfectly to each other. If you're Aldrich, you're thinking, hey, I just got to stay real tight, walk forward, hit my 1-2. Well, what would you do to counteract that? You're going to move around a lot. You're going to go side to side. You're going to try and hit around the ears. It's going to be a fun one. That one I'm really excited for.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here. Macy Barber, minus 250 favorite. To J.J. Aldrich, plus 195 dog. Who wins the fight and why?
I would say, man, God dang it. If there was an enticing dog on this card, that I think there's one more that could dog pick that could to make you lick your chops a little, but I am going to go with Barber. I think that even though she might punch a little loopy, I think her side-to-side movement, she's really going to probably chew up Aldrich's legs a little bit and maybe even push her against the fence and work that clinch really well. There's nothing better to kind of slow down the pump on someone's arms than to mush them against that fence, a la St. Pierre and BJ Penn.
Right. So one fight I just want you to talk about a little bit. Is Bobby Moffett and Thug Nasty Bryce Mitchell. Just because Bryce Mitchell, guys, if you're not familiar with who he is, maybe this story will remind you of who he is. This was quite a few months ago. He was actually working on a house, doing construction, had a drill in his pocket, and the drill ended up going off and basically drilling into his ball sack, for lack of a better term.
Drilled right through his nutsack.
Yes, drilled right through it. Ended up getting like a a sponsorship with underwear companies.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
It was a blessing in disguise for this man. This will be his first fight since then, if I'm correct. Is that right?
Yeah,
I think it is.
Yeah, he's been off this whole time. Yeah.
So, what are you expecting in this fight?
If I was, one thing we didn't talk about the Till and Masvidal. Masvidal sprinted straight out and kicked Till right in the nutsack. Just sprinted across the octagon and stomped his nutsack.
That's what we call a tone setter.
That building went quiet. If I was Bobby Moffitt, I may think about the same thing.
Yes.
I mean, there's not going to be a point deduction. It's just going to be... And
first one.
The Masvidal one looked as intentional as I've ever seen anybody kick somebody in the balls. So, if I was Bobby Moffitt, if he's listening, if we could shoot him this, run straight out, kick the dude in the balls. Set the tone. I don't know a ton about Moffitt. I was looking at his record. He does have some pretty good wins. Bryce Mitchell lost to Katona in a very close fight for the finale. Just beat Tyler Diamond, who's another tough guy from the show. Mostly a ground guy. I mean, he does have some good striking, but he's mostly a takedown, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, ground and pound type guy. Should be a pretty good battle. Pretty good battle of up-and-comer dudes. That's going to be a fun one. That one's going to be a fun one, too. As we look through this card, I kind of talked. I was like, it was kind of a weird card with the headliner. And then you got Blades and Willis, which actually means a lot to the division. That really, I think, could be a headliner. And as you look down, but top to bottom, there's just a lot of good scraps on here. Just a lot of equally matched. It's almost like the card of contenders. There's almost no fight in here where it's a super old dude just picking up an easy win or a young super prospect just beating the crap out of an old dude. It's almost all going to be contenders.
Yes, I agree with that. And one of the fights we've talked about, or one of the fighters we've talked about a lot, would be Luis Pena. Guys, if you're not familiar with him, you've probably heard us refer to him as either VBR or Violent Bob Ross extensively on this show. He's going to be taking on Steven Peterson. Violent Bob Ross does open up this fight card at a minus 275 favorite over Steven Peterson. Who would be your pick in this fight?
It's going to be Violent Bob Ross. The Peterson, I believe he came off the Contender Series. I watched one of his last fight this morning. He's pretty solid all around fighter, but he tends to just. He's one of those guys that's kind of like standing there and just trying to punch your brains out. He's a little flat-footed. He'll take two to give one type guy.
Do you want to hear a stat that's going to basically echo what you're saying?
What's that?
His strikes landed per minute are above 5, and his strikes absorbed per minute is above 5.
Okay, so yeah,
pretty spot on.
Yeah, I mean he'll take 5 to give 2 or 5 or whatever.
5 for 5.
5 for 5. Yeah, Bob Ross he's going to have the length on him. He's going to have the range on him. I got to think Pena just VBR kind of stands back, uses that good long right hand jab and that long left high kick, and just kind of picks him apart. The thing that could win Peterson the fight is Bob Ross. Although he was a wrestler in Missouri, I want to say a state qualifier. I don't know if he was a state champ. He did go to state a few times or once. So he's a solid wrestler. Missouri wrestling ain't Illinois wrestling. Or Pennsylvania, like we talked a few weeks ago with Mr. Blank. But they're not scrubs, so he can wrestle a little bit. But this Peterson dude did seem like he was very solid in the clinch takedown, and then once he was on top, he was pretty good. So I think his route to victory is put Bob Ross up against the fence, grind him down. And Pena's is got a little more of an advantage because he is a solid wrestler, and then he's got the range on him too. But a fight's a fight; you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely looking forward to that one. So on this card, for it being not an actual like UFC, UFC like with the event pay-per-view. It has some solid fights. We actually have a matchup of 2 top 5 contenders. Number 1 contender in the flyweight division, Jussier Formiga, is taking on Davison Figueiredo, the number 4 ranked fighter in the flyweight division. Figueiredo is actually still undefeated with a 15-0 record. The odds to this fight, Figueiredo is a minus 150 favorite over Formiga, who's a plus 120 dog, despite the fact that he is the number 1 contender in the division. Who do you have in this fight? This looks to be, this could be a fight that if, just because of their namesake, not necessarily because of their talent, is not the headliner. This talent level could be a headliner on a card for sure, but I guess these guys just don't have the name yet in the UFC to headline a card. Potential for fight of the night. Who do you like to win?
I mean, I think the odds are right. I think Figueiredo should be the favorite. I mean, I had picked Moraga to beat him in the last fight in August, and he beat the shit out of Moraga. The only one I think that Jared Brooks, the guy that Shorty had his win against in the UFC, that slammed his head off the mat. I think Brooks actually beat Figueiredo. It was a super close fight. But anyways, Figueiredo is 15-0. He's just a wild man. I mean, he throws caution to the wind when he's punching. He's like a BJJ black belt, I believe. He's wild on the ground. He's just a wild man. And I don't necessarily think that stacks up great against guys like at the time DJ and now Henry Cejudo. But damn, I mean, he beat the crap out of Moraga. So dude's the real deal. Now De Silva, I said there's one other fight that you could lick your chops as a dog on. This is it, because he's coming off. He beat Ben Nguyen. He had a loss to Ray Borg. So he lost a split decision to Cejudo. He's beat Wilson Hayes. He's beat Dustin Ortiz. Had a loss to Ray Borg. And then he's on a 3-fight win streak, including his last win over Pettis. If there was another dog to pick out here, it's got to be De Silva. I mean, he's coming off the biggest win of his career. He's the underdog. He's got nothing to lose. That's going to be a very close fight. I think Figueiredo should rightfully so be the favorite, but I could see De Silva beating him just the same. He's a little bit more of a ground guy. He wants to take him down and keep him down. So, you could have Davison coming out here trying to throw bombs like a wild man and just get taken down over and over and over and over. Or Figueiredo could stuff some takedowns and just beat the dog shit out of him. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that'll be an awesome fight, to be honest. So we'll just continue to run through the main card since we're already halfway through it. We have, in the lightweight division, John McDessie taking on Jesus Pinedo. Did I get that name right?
I'm not sure. And actually, I don't know anything about Pinedo.
Okay.
I wasn't checking that because I've been checking off Sherdog, and that one was on Sherdog. That's 4 fights from the bottom. So it's probably not even it was an early prelim. And then when I checked Fight Pass just a little bit ago, they have Marlon Vera and Frankie Saenz not even on that was the co-main event on Sherdog, but it's not even on there now. So I had looked up the Vera and Saenz guys a little bit and skipped over McDessie and Pinedo. So kind of weird. Why would they bump McDessie and Pinedo up to co-main?
I don't know, because I know whenever I
and you
looked
got
earlier
Blades
this
and
week,
Willis right there.
I don't even think it was listed as one of the main card fights on this one, and it really doesn't make sense that one would be, following the Formiga Figueiredo fight.
Yeah, a little weird.
So let's just go ahead and go to the co-main event then.
Oh, so they do have Willis and Blades as co-main on that.
Oh yeah, co-main.
Okay, on Sherdog they got that 2 fights down.
Wow,
super weird. I don't know. I'm gonna have to email Sherdog and tell them that they're effing up our show picks.
Yeah, we need to take it up with them. Curtis Blades versus Justin Big Pretty Willis. This is obviously a fight that, kind of hits home to this podcast. We've had Curtis Blades on as a guest multiple times. Going to have him back on more than likely after this win. But Curtis Blades, number 4 heavyweight contender, will take on Justin Big Pretty. He is a top 10 contender. Fight odds here. Curtis Blades opens as a minus 285 favorite, pretty substantial to Justin Big Pretty Willis's plus 225. Mr. Shackelford, who do you have winning in this fight and why?
Yeah, we got to go Blades. I mean, not just because he's been on the show, and hopefully we're going to meet up and have a brewski with him this weekend. I think fight-wise, he's definitely the better wrestler. He's been at that team elevation for a little bit longer, so his hands have been catching up with his wrestling ability. But he's going to be physically, he's going to be the bigger. He may not weigh more because Big Pretty's got a little bit of a booty and belly on him, like power belly is what we'll call it. But I think he's just going to mush Big Pretty to the fence, get the takedown, and work a little bit of old school Blades that we're used to. Now, Pretty, his last fight was just a horrendous affair with Mark Hunt. As a fan, I don't want to see Mark Hunt leave the UFC like that. I mean, he basically just backpedaled and threw a jab for 3 rounds. And at one point, Mark Hunt was just several points. He was just walking forward with his hands down, taking a jab. And Big Pretty, I don't know if he ever threw a right hand. Like, he was just jab, back up, jab, back up, jab. And Hunt was just letting him hit him just so he could, just try and make a fight of it type thing. So, Big Pretty, super athletic. He was a college defensive lineman. He trains at AKA, so he's got good training. But I just don't know that his wrestling will be able to catch up with, as good as wrestler as Blades is. So Blades has got to be the pick, not just because, again, he's friends of the show, but because I think he's overall the better fighter, and he's just going to drag him to the mat, I believe.
Yeah, so just a little interesting fun fact here. Curtis Blades, if he lands 2 takedowns in this fight, he will break the UFC record for most takedowns by a heavyweight.
For heavyweight? That's
Ever.
pretty nuts.
Yeah,
especially when you think about some of the wrestlers that have gone through the heavyweight division.
Oh, yeah. And if you look from where he's at in second place, there's nobody really even close. Like, he's 8 takedowns away.
Who's first, Randy?
Cain Velasquez.
Oh, shit, yeah.
With 34.
Man, if you think...
Randy Couture has 25.
Damn. So if you think about some heavyweights that have gone through, Josh Barnett... I'll just think of champs. Barnett, DC, Randy, Brock Lesnar, Frank Mir. You think of all these guys that had Stipe. These guys had some long ass careers in the heavyweight division, and he's already, he's only been maybe 2-3 years in the UFC. That's kind of nuts.
If he gets 2, he'll break the record, and that'll be over completing takedowns at over a 50% clip.
Yeah.
He's at 56%.
So what you're saying is it's a pretty safe bet that he's going to drag Big Pretty down.
Oh, he'll do it twice. Because he had actually, Curtis Blades actually posted this on his Instagram, so that may be something that we're looking to see. I mean, that'd be kind of cool, seeing the record broken that night. And honestly, the way that it's looking, there probably won't be anybody close to that, seeing that nobody's even had over 25 outside of him and Kane.
And he's still young as hell. So.
Yeah, he's still super young. He'll probably end his career with like 150 takedowns. So we'll go ahead and head to the main event. We have Stephen Thompson taking on Anthony Showtime Pettis. Odds are swung pretty big in Stephen Pettis' favor.
Thompson, right?
Stephen Thompson, yes, sorry about that. Stephen Thompson is a minus 450 favorite to Anthony Pettis' 325 dog. I know prior to Anthony Pettis' last fight, you and I, we kind of were talking about how, maybe his career has come to a standstill. Maybe he needs to walk away. Hasn't had a whole lot of success as of recent. Comes out in his last fight and actually looked really, really good. Put on a very fun showing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of Stephen Thompson's fights are very, very boring because people don't necessarily bring the fight to him because his stance and his fight style are very, very unorthodox compared to what you see a lot of times in the UFC. Do you think that Anthony Pettis can be the kind of guy to at least give us a fun showing in this fight?
You remember a few weeks ago when we saw Anderson Silva versus Adesanya? I think at best that's what this fight looks like. At worst, Thompson just obliterates him. I mean, just walks out, obliterates him. Because look, man, Pettis, yes, he's a Taekwondo badass, and Thompson's a karate badass. But let's not forget, Thompson walks around at 195 something pounds. He cuts to get to 170. Pettis has fought at 145. And he's like a pretty natural 155. He wasn't one of the guys that cut a ton of weight to get to 55. So you think best case scenario, he walks around at 160, 165 pounds. Chubby, walks around weight.
Yeah.
Whereas the other guy's 35 pounds bigger, walks around, and is just as quick, has just as good as dexterity. I think they're going to come out and try and make this almost look like a karate taekwondo fight.
Like some Power Ranger shit.
Yes. So at best, we get kind of a cool showcasing of some fun techniques. They go back and forth where one guy throws and the other guys throw and the other guy, at best we get that. At worst, Thompson goes out there, beats the diggity dog shit out of him. I mean, we talked about Pettis. We didn't really know what was next from him. Did you see this coming?
No, hell no.
He's lost. I just looked it up. His last title defense was against Gilbert Melendez in 2014. His first loss of that title was actually March 15th of 2015, 4 years ago. He's gone 3-6 since then. He's out of 9 fights, he has won 3 since then. I just don't know what. Other than, hey, it's a main event, I'm gonna make some money here. I don't know why he signed this fight. I see no way for him to win.
No way.
No way. If he wins, it would absolutely be the biggest upset that I can think of. I mean, has to be.
Oh yeah. No, I agree. Just because he is so much smaller than Pettis, I think there's going to be a noticeable difference. Whenever you look in the cage, you're going to think,
Thompson's
what the
like
hell?
6'3".
Yeah.
He's like 6'3", 195 pounds. He's your size.
Yes,
he's your size.
He's a very
and
big
he's
guy.
fighting a guy that's probably 5. Let me get his
5'10".
exact. 5'10". So
Stephen Thompson on I don't know where Wikipedia gets their shit, but they have Stephen Thompson listed as 6 foot.
Well,
I don't believe that. He's at least 6'1".
I guarantee you he looks more than 1 inch bigger than.
Yes,
I
no,
guarantee you.
He's going to tower him.
Right? So that's saying that he's 1 inch taller than Anthony Pettis. I bet you money when they get in that ring, he looks like he's a foot taller.
I will say, though, Stephen Thompson, his last 6 fights, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. So he's ready for a win.
I mean, I just don't know. I'm going to have fun as hell. Hopefully by that time we're about 4 beers deep. We're chilling. We're moving and grooving. We're watching the Rumbles. And I hope we get to see some Ninja Power Rangers shit.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, at best, Power Rangers. At worst, you remember that not the Friday the 13th where the black karate dude was fighting Jason and he's like ha ha ha, and like you think he's whooping Jason's ass and then Jason actually punches his head off, like he punches him and his head goes flying off.
I'm too scared to watch those movies.
Okay, well that's at worst. That's at worst. You see Stephen Thompson punches his head clean off. Friday the 13th, like number 55 style. At best, we could see Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
I have a prediction about this fight. Usually, whenever I give a pretty bold take on these, I usually get my ass whooped. But I think that I think Pettis took this fight knowing that this was going to be one of his only chances to actually headline a card, and he's going to go out there and put on a fun fight. I don't know if it's going to be a good fight. I don't know if it's going to be technically like something that we're going to look back on and be like, man, that was a hell of a fight. We're just going to be like, this was visually appealing, and we enjoyed every minute of it until we didn't. Because
we didn't.
Because you look at the Tony Ferguson fight, obviously we thought he was going to go out there and just get manhandled.
Yeah, and
he went out there and put it on there.
He did look a lot better in that one. I mean, And there's been talk of Ferguson going up to 70 because he is such a big 55. So maybe the size difference isn't going to be that big. I mean, maybe his taekwondo is so good that he'll be able to evade a lot of those wild, super strong techniques that the karate man has. Hey, I just said my first kickboxing experience was at a taekwondo gym, so I'm taekwondo all day.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go taekwondo all day.
And I will say a blessing in disguise for us being able to just have a visually appealing fight is that Stephen Thompson's almost going to go 3 years now without a finish. He hasn't had a finish since 2016 whenever he basically kicked a hole through John Hendrick's body.
that was not a good night for Johnny.
No. So hopefully it's a good night of fights.
Yeah.
So any other little tidbits or anything that you've seen that you want to discuss?
Well, we got just some quick tidbits. Me and you talked a bit last week. We got the NCAA finals coming up this weekend. Me and you were looking through the things that are just locally. You said there was Josh Albers ranked 4th in the mix at 141.
133, I believe.
No, I thought it was 41 with Yanni.
Oh yeah, it is 141.
So there's a gigantic favorite in that weight class, but you said he wrestled the same year as you up at State in Illinois, so that'll be pretty fun. There's another kid. I'm blanking on his name from Carbondale.
Oh, Caffey.
Cameron Caffey wrestles for Michigan State at like 84. He made the tournament. Maybe we'll surprise some guys, but I think 33. So they do that thing every year where they make they pick the most exciting class, or maybe like the biggest finals match, and that's going to be the end. So say 133, say they're expecting that to be the wildest match, they'll actually start at 141, so that way the finals end at 133. I haven't looked to see what it is, but I'm gonna say it's either going to be the 33-pound weight class where there's basically 5 guys, 1 through 5 have all had a win over each other, or they're going to maybe have Bo Nickel rounded out at 97 just because he is so wild. They'll know that it'll be a wild finish. So, but yeah, you got the 97 with Nickel. I think heavyweight's going to be fun. Minnesota's got a big dude that actually Brock Lesnar, they put out a video of him training with the kid, wrestling a little bit,
Hopefully he's on Brock Lesnar's diet.
He's actually, what's crazy is this dude, his name's Gable Stevenson. You look at him, he's gigantic. Lesnar still looks fucking 3 times the size of him.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm trying to think of some of the other. You got Nolf and Mark Hall from Penn State that are pretty big favorites. I'm trying to think of some of the other weight classes right now. 33 look tough. 20, if you guys are just looking for some wild ass wrestling, 25 is always just scramble after scramble after scramble. That should be fun. That's this week, and you said it starts tomorrow.
Yes.
So they'll start tomorrow on ESPN and probably have a couple of play times. I think Flow Wrestling carries a bunch of it too. But the finals absolutely will be on Saturday on ESPN.
Saturday during the fights. So we have a lot of stuff to look forward to.
I forgot. Gary Tonin. We're doing another interview tonight with him, so he'll be on this episode. One more thing before you do yours. I just saw before we walked in, T.J. Dillashaw popped for something.
Yes, I did actually see that. I completely forgot about that.
He issued a
he's
statement
relinquishing
that
his belt and everything.
So that must mean it's not good.
No, it has to be some serious shit if he's just going to voluntarily hand that over.
So, and that may have effectively saved the 25-pound division, because I don't want to see anything more than I want to see Joseph Benavidez versus, I want to see Benavidez versus Cejudo, and I'd rather see Moraes fight, put him against what's his name that just knocked out Garbrandt. I mean, how wild of a fight is that going to be?
That'd be a good fight.
So, we said if Dillashaw and Cejudo got booked again, we said Cejudo probably saved the 25 division. Then for some reason people were clamoring for Dillashaw Cejudo again. Well, USADA may have just saved the 25-pound division.
Yeah, single-handedly.
Single-handedly,
USADA saved the 25-pound division. Single-handedly, they gave DC a title too.
Yeah. How the world changes with USADA.
Yeah.
Pretty insane.
That is crazy. So, Dippers, Gary Tonin interview, like we promised. We have hopefully another interview coming back up with Curtis Blades following this win over Big Pretty. And on that note, Dippers, for Drake, for Mr. Shackelford, as always, stay saucy.
Oops. Sorry, Leighton, you're